Hello everyone. I know I've been putting this aside for quite a while, so here it is finally. The review of the Tornado V3. One thing to say is that this cube is super fast out of the box. So I would recommend keeping your water-based lubes away and only use them to sort of help break in the more thicker lubes that you have. Speaking of thick lubes, these lubes are useless when it comes to slowing down the Tornado V3. The Tornado V3 is the fastest cube that I have so far, and that could be a good thing. It could also be a bad thing. At DFW Cubing Winter 2023, I noticed that cubers that were more on the sub 30 and sub 20 level that were using this cube to compete with were sort of slipping up, because whenever you get nervous in competition, you tend to turn a bit faster. And with my GAN 11M Pro, I have it set up so it's fast, but it's also stable because of the magnets. And the RS3M had thicker loops, so that way it stays stable in case whenever I'm competing and I start turning faster, the lube or magnetic strength slows me down. And yes, the Tornado V3 did come with core magnets on the flagship and Pioneer editions, but those are practically useless, as I tried out a Pioneer Tornado V3 and I barely felt a difference with the magnetic core. It's maybe because the maglev was affecting it too. But in that case, if I were to get a cube with core magnets, I'd go for the GAN 11M Pro, as those core magnets are super good. Now, my settings are on 2 for the screw and 5 for the spring, as 2 is the setting that allows you to enjoy the Tornado V3's improved corner cutting over the V2's the most, because 1 is way too flimsy and 3 was too more on the tight side and felt basically just like the V2's corner cutting again. And the corner cutting is a drastic improvement over the V2's, but a cheaper cube like an RS3M 2020 or an older cube like the GAN Air SM and an older cube like the GAN Air SM can corner cut way more and way easier than the Tornado V3. Now, one thing that I'm gonna praise the Tornado V3 for is how I don't need a screw or my GES nuts in order to change the tension and springs. I could just change it by hand, and the way you do that is you lift up this little thingy right here, and then you turn counterclockwise for the screw tension. So it's on 2, and now it's now on 3, and it's told by this little circle here, and these little lines like this shows you your spring, and in order to change your spring tension you turn clockwise. So now it's at 1, and if I turn it again it's at 2, and if I turn counterclockwise I'm now on the 4th for the screw, and there. But one thing that I'm gonna criticize is that if you have a way to tension it without the use of a screwdriver, why do you still have the screw here? Because if you do use a screwdriver for this screw, then you could possibly mess things up. Now, any iteration of the RS3M family has a spring compression thingy, which you use your hand or a tool to set it like that, and the screw you do have to use a screwdriver to change it. While any newer iteration of the GAN cubes uses a special GES nut or a more fancier iteration of it. And those, you don't really have to worry about getting inconsistent settings. The magnets are also adjustable via an adjustment tool. However, to me, similar to the Tornado V2, the strongest magnets are really the only ones that work, as this is a fast cube and you need some form to slow it down so you could control it a bit more. Now, most of my algorithms feel super nice on this cube. However, I have to worry more about over and undershooting a lot, especially when it comes to the G, V, and E perms. Now, on my GAN 11M Pro, these algorithms feel completely effortless, and I don't really have to worry much about overshooting and undershooting thanks to the corner-to-core magnets. And on the RS3M 2020, these algorithms also feel effortless, and it's mainly because the RS3M 2020 is a more slower cube, so I'd recommend this cube more to the beginners if you don't want to really struggle with the super fast turning of the Tornado V3. Now, for the more faster solvers, IG sub 15, this cube may start seeing more now as a viable option. But as a sub 15 solver myself, I find myself preferring my GAN 11M Pro more, as it is easier to control and actually way easier to set up. Now, my Tornado V3, it's much more harder to control, and I actually struggled to find the right setting for corner cutting. And for springs, I set it to the strongest spring so I could control this cube as much as I possibly could. Now, there is a cube that feels similar to the Tornado V3, and that is the GAN 356 Air M. Now, this cube used to be my main before I got an RS3M 2020, and this cube was the cube that got me towards the sub 30 barrier, and this cube is pretty nice. It's, I think, slightly more expensive than the Tornado V3, but its corner cutting is much more consistent, and although it does feel a bit more blocky, I'd heavily recommend this cube more towards the more beginner and intermediate solvers, as it is because it's a cheap GAN cube and it's really consistent and stable to control, and it's also super easy to customize. You can, with blue GES nuts and settings 0.6 and 0.8. Both of these settings are really good for this cube, and it just fits down to your personal preference. So my final thoughts on this cube is that although it's fast, I generally don't like it, as it doesn't really fit my turning style, and it's too fast for me to take good advantage of. Now, if you're a more faster solver, then this cube does start seeming. Now, if you're a more faster solver, this cube is now a good option, as it's fast enough for you to do the more harder finger tricks. But if you're more of a beginner, I'd recommend getting something like an RS3M 2020 or the RS3M 2022. And this cube is also a really good cube, but it will be getting its own review on another day. For now, that was it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later.